Chapter 3, Two for the Road. Brucey, it's so good of you to finally show up, said Veronica Freeland. Bruce handed his coat to one of the waiters at the charity ball. You know me, Veronica, Bruce said with a sly smile, always making a dramatic entrance. Veronica produced a rather fake laugh. She patted Bruce's label of Bruce's lapel? Of course, she said. I should have known. Can I get you something to drink, sir? Asked a voice from behind Bruce. Bruce turned to see a skinny young man with light hair and a nervous smile. Just a water for now, thanks, Bruce answered, smiling at the young waiter. Veronica took Bruce's arm and walked him into the hospital. The normally bare hospital walls had been decorated for the evening with large dramatic curtains. They gave the event a feeling of glitz and glamour. It was actually the type of party Gotham's rich and famous people were used to attending. Bruce glanced at Veronica as they walked. He had known her for years. They both came from wealthy Gotham families, but while Veronica loved the spotlight, Bruce was more comfortable in the shadows. It was so good of you to organize this event, Veronica said, smiling up at her handsome date. It was nothing, really, Bruce said. My butler did most of the work. Veronica laughed, her fake laugh once again. Bruce smiled at her, but his thoughts were straying. He shouldn't have let Poison Ivy get away. He should have kept an eye on Harley Quinn at all times. His mind felt divided between where he was and where he should be. Hopefully the call he made earlier would reach his partners. Are you okay? Veronica asked. You seem to be a million miles away. No, I'm fine, Bruce said, clearing his throat. Just thirsty. Bruce raised a finger in the air as the waiter walked by him. How's that water coming along? He asked the awkward waiter. Sir? The waiter asked, confused. I ordered a water from you. Bruce said. No, sir, you didn't order anything from me, the waiter said. Just then Bruce noticed someone out of the corner of his eye. It was a young man who looked exactly like the waiter he was talking to. Oh, Bruce said, as the second man brought him his water. My mistake. Bruce turned to Veronica. For the first time that night, she was laughing a genuine laugh. Twins, she said, smiling widely. Bruce looked around the room. There were 8 waiters total. All 8 waiters were dressed in vests and bow ties and seemed a bit nervous. But the strangest thing was that each waiter had an identical twin working beside him. That's odd, Bruce thought. 4 sets of twins in the same place? Suddenly Bruce realized what was going on. He knew what he had to do. Excuse me for a moment, will you? Bruce asked Veronica. I need to get a little air, fresh air. Veronica let out a fake laugh again, as Bruce hurried away. His walk turned into a jaunt as he neared the doorway to the stairs. The stairwell was empty and just shadowy enough placed so no one would see, so that he wouldn't be seen. Bruce began to unbutton his shirt and reveal his Batman uniform underneath. Rat-tat, rat-tat. It was too late. He could hear weapons firing inside the ballroom. Peering through the small window on the door, Bruce realized his suspicions had been correct. Waltzing into the room was none other than Two-Face. "Hands up!" Two-Face yelled. "Both of them!" Bruce watched as the rich men and women raised their hands. Every single one of them looked terrified. "Here's the deal," Two-Face said. "We don't want your cash, and we couldn't care less about your jewels. We came here for one reason." Bruce pressed his ear against the door in order to hear better. "We want Bruce Wayne," Two-Face screamed. "Give him to us and we'll leave the rest of you alone. And if you don't," Bruce looked down at the bat symbol on his chest. He could rush into the ballroom as Batman, but it would put countless lives in danger. He really had no choice. He had to give himself up. Bruce Wayne buttoned up his shirt and pushed open the stairwell door. "I'm right here, Harvey," he said, raising his hands. "Get him, boys!" Two-Face grumbled. The four sets of twins and of twin waiters surrounded Bruce. Two of Two-Face's twin thugs put a cloth bag over Bruce's head. Then everything went black. Chapter 4. Double Trouble. "Up and at 'em, Bruce," Two-Face said as he pulled the bag off of Bruce Wayne's head. "Nap time's over." Bruce looked around. He was standing on the second floor of a catwalk of what looked like a chemical plant. The factory was poorly lit, but it had several giant vats of boiling liquid below. Bruce tried to move his arm, but both hands were tied behind his back. In front of him stood Two-Face's 8 henchmen. All of them were armed. "What's the meaning of this, Harvey?" Bruce asked him angrily. Now, Two-Face said, patting Bruce on the back. "Is that any way to talk to an old friend?" "You're not the man I used to know," Bruce said. "That's true," Two-Face began. "But after tonight, you won't be the man you used to know either." "What are you saying?" Bruce asked, narrowing his eyes. Harvey turned his good side toward Bruce. We're old pals, Brucey," Harvey said. "We go way back. Years ago, you were even going to be my best man when I was all set to marry Pamela Isley." "Harvey," Bruce tried to speak. "You were like me," Two-Face interrupted. "A real hero to people." Two-Face turned away from Bruce and a bit so that only his scarred side was visible. "Well, now you're going to be like me once again, Bruce," Two-Face said harshly. I'll bring out your inner menace. A pair of Two-Face's henchmen walked over to Bruce and led him forward. Bruce moved slowly along the narrow catwalk until he was right above one of the bubbling vats. You'll be my partner, old friend, Two-Face said. But first, you need a little makeover. Something to bring out your dark side. Stay put, Wade, said John Rossetti, one of Two-Face's henchmen. Bruce recognized the man as the first waiter back at the charity ball. John kept his weapon trained on Bruce, as well as both he and his twin brother slowly backed away to join the rest of Two-Face's men. Harvey and his men were standing above another vat of chemicals, but all of their eyes were fixed on the vat right below Bruce. You know where we are? Two-Face asked Bruce from the other side of the catwalk. This is the place that made me. An explosion here gave me my new look. Two-Face paused, pointing at his scarred face. I'm going to do the same to you, old friend, he said. That vat down there is rigged to blow at the touch of a button. Don't do this, Harvey, Bruce said. He began to struggle with his hands. Two-Face had bound them tightly. Don't worry, Two-Face said. We're doing this for your own good. Two-Face reached into his pocket to remove a remote control. You're not thinking straight. You're not thinking straight, Bruce said. He secretly reached under his suit jacket into his utility belt. Bruce palmed a small capsule into his hand. This isn't going to kill you, Two-Face said, ignoring Bruce's comment. He raised his remote into the air. It'll just make you stronger. Just as Two-Face was about to trigger the remote, Bruce turned and tossed the capsule. It landed in the vat directly below Two-Face and his men. The capsule contained a small plastic explosive. Ba-doom! The entire catwalk shook as the vat erupted like a volcano. Two-Face and his men divided to the side to avoid the blast. Several henchmen grabbed onto the railing to support. Concealed by smoke and flames, Bruce reached into his utility belt for a knife. He quickly cut himself free from the rope. He began to run down the catwalk away from Two-Face's men. Get him! Two-Face yelled, but his men had trouble seeing anything. A thick pillar of black smoke had covered the entire catwalk. Two-Face's men fired their weapons blindly into the fog. Suddenly Josh saw a shadowy figure walking towards him. There he is! He yelled. There's Wade! The figure stepped out of the smoke and smiled. Not quite, he said. Two-Face's men took a collective step backward. Standing only a few feet away from them was Batman. Suddenly, a shadowy black glove fist sliced through the smoke, filled the air. Pow! Chapter 5. 2 for 1. Rat-tat-tat! The sound of weapons firing echoed inside the factory. The smoke was still too thick to see through. None of Two-Face's men could spot their target. Swish! Gloved black hands shot out of the smoke, knocking one of Two-Face's thugs against the wall behind him. Slam! A black boot sent a swift kick into another henchman's stomach. Batman was moving through the fog unseen. He truly was a creature of darkness. Two-Face watched with worry as the Dark Knight attacked several of his men. Then he backed away from the catwalk and headed toward the spiral metal staircase. Meanwhile, Batman was lifting a henchman into the air. He effortlessly tossed him toward his twin brother across the platform. Clink, clank. Batarangs shot out and struck two more of Two-Face's men. Batman did a quick count in his head. 7 of Two-Face's men were down. Only 1 remained. Batman heard footsteps pounding against the metal steel. He saw John Rossetti sprinting blindly across the catwalk. The young crook turned to see if Batman was following him. In his panic, Rossetti ran smack into a support beam. Ow, that's gonna hurt. John slumped to the ground. Batman shrugged. That was easy. He said to himself. Kaboom! Another vat exploded, sending boiling orange chemicals into the air. Two-Face had triggered the bomb he'd intended for Bruce Wayne. Batman raised his cape and crouched beneath it. The chemical splashed off its fire-resistant metal. Two-Face had used up his last ace in the hole. Outside, Two-Face was running across the factory's empty parking lot. Suddenly, he felt a thin cord wrapping around his legs. He fell to the ground, dropping his weapons on the hard pavement. As he struggled to free himself, he glanced upward. Standing over him was Batman. The Dark Knight's cape was blowing in the gentle evening breeze. Batman's hand held the other end of the bat rope. It's over, Two-Face, he said. Two-Face started laughing. I thought for sure that you'd know me better by now, Bats, he said. As Batman pulled Two-Face to his feet, the Batmobile pulled up behind them. Two-Face continued, I always have 2 plans up my sleeve in a matter of minutes. I'll have enough money to buy my way out of any crime the cop charged me with. Not this time, came a voice from inside the Batmobile. As the top slid open, Robin leapt out of the cockpit, looking at Two-Face. This jailbird won't be flying free anytime soon. Those puns stopped being funny about 2 years ago, said Batgirl as she stood up in the driver's seat. You got my call? Batman said to his 2 partners. He leaned Two-Face up against the side of the car. Batman placed his handcuffs around Two-Face's wrists. Yup, Robin said, and it was just like you said. Harley and Ivy tried to hit the 2nd Avenue Lex Bank. We were waiting for them. Not to say they didn't go without a fight, Batgirl added. She picked a thorn out of her hair and flicked it to the ground. But Two-Face won't be buying his way out of this one, Batgirl said, smiling. Two-Face's confident smile quickly disappeared. You knew, he mumbled. I figured out what you were up to hours ago, Batman said, after I heard Ivy mention something about repaying old debts. It's why you had your engagement to Pamela Isley on your mind earlier. Two-Face was speechless. Poison Ivy broke your heart back before you were Two-Face, Batman continued. So she agreed to run a few errands for you. Now that you're in the same line of work, she figured she owed you a favor. I bet you even suggested to her that she should work with a partner. Police sirens sounded in the distance as Batman continued to talk. Your patterns are too predictable, Harvey. Banks that are connected to the number 2? A pair of criminals? 2 crimes at once? Two-Face grunted. He looked over at Batgirl and Robin. The sirens of the police cars grew louder. That's something else we have in common, Bats, he said. We both understand the need for partners. 3 police cars pulled into the factory parking lot. Two-Face stared at the flashing lights and then stood up straight. He looked Batman in the eye. Guess we're not alike. I guess we're more alike than even I thought, he said. Batman reached into his utility belt and pulled out his grappling gun. He shot it into the air toward a neighboring building. As Batman soared upward to the building, Batgirl and Robin settled back into their seats of the Batmobile. They reeved the engine and prepared to follow their boss. The police car pulled up next to Two-Face, surrounding him with a wail of sirens, but Two-Face didn't notice them. His eyes were fixed on his old friend, who was now his enemy. The cool evening air enveloped Batman as he swung on his line, soaring up to the nearby building's rooftop. Batman landed gracefully. He paused for a second, then looked back down at his former friend. We're more alike than you'll ever know, Harvey, Batman said under his breath. With that, Batman and Bruce Wayne disappeared into the night. And that's the end of the story. For those who have never heard of the character of Two-Face, there is like a little character bio in the back here. Basically, the story gave all the information that you would need to know if you had never heard of the character of Two-Face before. So I really liked this story. It was really interesting, really good. And if it exists, I would like to read they should write a version of, they should like have a book where it's like what happened to Batgirl and Robin that night. Like, how did they catch Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy and the big battle scene and stuff. Like, is there a book in the series of that? Because if so, I would like to read it. Because so far these books in this series have been epic. So, yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this dramatic reading. And I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.